Hi, this is Tom Needham, and you are listening to The Sounds of Film here in New York. And I'm very excited to have on the phone with us a true legend in the film music industry, Lalo Schifrin. Through the years, he has been one of the leading composers. He's done over 100 scores in both television and film. He's received 4 Grammy Awards. He's been nominated 21 times, and he's won 6 or been nominated 6 times for Oscars for film composing. He got started in television, working on many television shows, including Mission Impossible and also Man from U.N.C.L.E., and later moved into films, where he did so many different film scores, including Cool Hand Luke, Dirty Harry, Bullitt, and Mannix, just to name a few. Lalo, it's really a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for coming on The Sounds of Film.
Well, it's a great pleasure. Thank you.
There is so much I want to talk to you about. Besides doing your film composing, you're also a celebrated jazz pianist. Tell me a little bit, when you started growing up, how did you first get interested in music?
Well, when I started to grow up, I studied piano. I studied with my parents. They invited me, or rather, they suggested to me to study piano, and also on my own I started to study harmony, composition, and because of composition I got to the few contrapoint, the orchestration. So that was the beginning of a long process of preparation. But the reason I went into film is because I was very curious about this idea of audiovisual counterpoint. Mm. I started to make, with orange pencils, blotches of orange, for instance. I started to think myself, what is the sound of color orange? And I, in my own mind, I came to the conclusion that the sound of color orange is 2 oboes playing a minor second, B flat and A, together, unison with a harpsichord. And to me, that was the sound of, I could be wrong, but to me, that was the sound of color orange. And then I started to go, when I was a little older, when I was 12 years or 13 years old, in the museums, I used to visit museums,
right.
And I started to think, what is the sound of this painting?
Wow, so at a very young age.
What?
At a young age, you were already making these connections between...
I'm trying to explain it to you.
Yeah.
Not only the sound that I started to... In the painting, there was maybe a story.
Huh.
And this is what started to take me to film, because in film, the pictures are moving, and they tell a story, and I like that. I love that. And take me to this area.
Now, I understand that before you got into television, you had an amazing experience touring around with Dizzy Gillespie as part of the State Department's All-Star Band. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me what you learned from that experience that you were able to use later on in your career.
Well, one of the reasons before I met him, which was amazing, before I met him, I was buying records because I was living living in my home country, Argentina, in Buenos Aires, the capital, and I became interested in jazz because of the rhythms that were originated in Africa, the Afro-Cuban rhythms and Afro-American rhythms, and also the harmonies. I became although I was studying harmony, I became very curious about the nature of the chords. Why these chords are like that, or this is even before I met Dizzy. But then it was a coincidence, which maybe, there is a Argentinian poet and writer, Jorge Luis Borges. You know him? You heard of him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said that luck and destiny are synonymous. And I think that happened to me because of being lucky that he came on tour to Buenos Aires and he listened to my piano playing and my arranging and my compositions. He asked me to come to the United States. And I learned a lot with him too. He was a great teacher and a great master. And it was a very excellent experience. So by putting all these things together, my classical training combining with his teachings, I was ready to. And also my love for films, which made the television, in my experience, was very a synthesized form of film, shorter, not too much development, but it's still, there is audiovisual counterpoint, and also counterpoint with storyline.
Yeah.
And that helped. Oh, I have to tell you something more.
Yeah.
When I was younger, my father was the concertmaster of Buenos Aires Philharmonic. He's the one who helped me to get all these things, and he took me to the experience of opera. Opera is very, in the 19th century, when there were no films, that was a form that an audience could be exposed to a story instead of this big screen is in a theater, and the singers are characters of a story. Sometimes it can be jealousy, it can be conflict, it can be love, all the things that happen in movies or television, and that prepared me also. And I used to read a lot of novels, and I read plays also, and I went to plays, not only musical comedies, but I'm talking about serious plays.
Right.
And that helped me a lot.
Well, that's really interesting because I'm amazed when I speak to film composers and I ask them about the process. Many will tell me that they start off with the script, and I'm always amazed how much one has to, as a film composer, really be able to understand plot, character, theme. You really do have to be well read and able to delve into all the literary qualities of a screenplay. And it sounds like you had a rich upbringing that introduced that stuff to you. You mentioned going into television. You are so famous for some of that work that you did in television, with Man from U.N.C.L.E. and, of course, Mission Impossible. And while some people think of film as maybe being a higher art form, you brought all your skills to television. And some of your television work still stands the test today. How were you able to be so creative, to bring all your talents to television and do what you did?
Well, television, the difference between television and films, theatrical films, is very simple. While the theatrical film, I would compare with if you have to send a message to a relative, you could do two things. You could send a letter with a lot of development and say, for instance, let's say, I arrived, for instance, you say you want to tell a relative that you arrived, you came back from Miami vacation, you are back in New York City, and you want to tell them that. Well, there are two ways to tell them. One is by a letter saying, oh, we had a great time in Miami with the family, and it was extraordinary, and the things that happened there. And then we took the plane and came back to the airport, and I'm looking forward to see you, all of them, because I miss you, and it could be a long letter. But if you send it, if you want to send very fast, send a telegram. I'm back from Miami. Please call me. But that's the difference. The letter would be movies, and the telegram is television.
Mm. Well, you composed, as I said earlier, one of the most famous themes of all time with Mission Impossible. And I'm sure you've told the story a million times, but for our listeners who haven't heard it, it seems impossible that at one point the Mission Impossible theme didn't exist. It's become so iconic. When people think of that genre, you just immediately reference Mission Impossible and your music. Can you tell us the origin of how you came up with that melody and some of the music?
Well, first of all, I never thought that it was going to become so popular. I mean, I didn't even do it for popularity. I do it because it was a job. I had to do the job like I did all the other. Anything I did in movies or television or anything, I've done other things. I wrote music for jazz albums, and I had to deliver certain time, or I had to deliver, because unless you deliver in time, you're not getting paid, and I needed the money. I was not very affluent from a financial point of view. So I had to deliver in time, and that's the same thing happened with Mission Impossible. I never thought it was going to become so popular that I could be making money from so much royalties. This is amazing, and of course I was pleasantly surprised, and I still am. But I didn't really. I think that somebody who wants to write something to become popular is foolish, because there's no way, there are no formulas to tell the audience or the public you have to like this. That would be absolutely foolish. I was lucky. Again, luck and destiny are synonymous.
Do you remember how you got the idea for that music?
Well, the idea was the producer, Bruce Geller, told me, I want you to write something very exciting, something very living room and they hear that theme, I want you to write something that tells, oh, that's Mission Impossible. I want to, let's go back to the living room and see the show. This is what he told me. So that's what I did.
And you did it. And we're still listening to it today.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
What? Hello?
Yes, yeah. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say something else.
Okay.
So many scores today by today's composers, for me, are just unlistenable outside of in the context of the film. They're very generic, or they just serve the action sequence. But your music and a select handful of artists like Ennio Morricone, the music stands on its own. It's always just very, very interesting. I've listened to so many of your scores, and it's just amazing to me how creative you are, and the instruments that you use, and maybe it's some of that jazz influence. But I was wondering, like, how do you maintain the ability to create interesting sounding stuff while also serving the purpose of the TV show or eventually the film? Because it seems like a lot of film composers don't do that. Your stuff really stands out.
Well, first I want to tell you that I am a composer, but I'm not a critic, so I cannot make any comments about my colleagues who are writing whatever they can or whatever. Morricone, yes, is a great friend of mine, but we don't even exchange. When we talk and when we see each other, we have a good time. He was recently in Los Angeles, and we met and we had a good time. But we never talk about what we are doing. That would be completely narcissistic, and that is not what composers do when they are good. And if they are not good, I'd rather not talk to them. But as I said, I'm not a critic, and I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to embarrass anybody.
Yeah. But talk about yourself, if you can. How do you, time after time, create distinctive sounding music that's appealing to listen to even outside of the movie, and yet still get the job done?
Well, I thank you for your... I'm glad that you think like that, because I would never imagine to think about myself like that.
Yeah.
And I thank you. To answer the question is, perhaps my curiosity is what has taken me. I want to always to... I'm an explorer. But the people who are explorers are also driven by curiosity. And although I am an explorer, I already know what I'm going to find. Because, as I said, I hear the sounds of my head. I don't use, for instance, the piano to compose. I have it all in my head. When I was in the Paris Conservatory, my teachers used to tell me, write music away from the piano. And that was a great help. And any young composer who wants to do something positive and creative should do that. Away from the piano, away from the guitar, and away from any instrument, and have the music in the head and listen to everything. I hear already the whole orchestra. And this is from the very beginning. I listen to the whole, for instance, in Kulk and Luke. You know the movie Kulk and Luke?
Yes.
All right. The theme, I heard it the first time when I sat with the director. The movie was finished. They did the principal photography, and they did the editing, everything, because that's the way I like it, because that music and film, they have something in common. They happen in time and they have a rhythm. So I sat with him in the cutting room, and I saw the film, and the sound of the guitars with the melody already came. I didn't think about the melody before. I don't like to read screenplays because they are deceiving for me. They have the rhythm of a screenplay is so slow that could be it would drive me, and I had said this by experience. It could drive me to write something very, very slow, too long, and boring. So I like to see the film for the first time once it's completely finished, edited, and I get the rhythm of the film. Well, I heard the music, the same music that they are now recording, and it was already, it is already in the film. I heard it the first time I saw the film. And usually this is what happens.
That's amazing. That really is. That's pretty unique. One person that you're known to have had a special relationship is with Clint Eastwood, and you worked on the Dirty Harry films.
Yes.
And a couple of things I wanted to ask you about that. Number one, I wanted just to tell me like what it was like working with him back then, and also if you then realized that he himself had an interest in scoring music and jazz, which he has demonstrated through the years.
Well, first of all, the one who introduced me to him was a director with whom I worked before many times. He was Don Siegel. I don't know if you know who he was.
Yeah.
And he's the one, he hired me to do Dirty Harry. He's the one who directed Dirty Harry. But he was also, he had a very good relationship with Clint Eastwood. And it was not difficult to find, like, the three of us became a triumvirate. Because we got along very well, and there was no problem. And then when Don Siegel, unfortunately, passed away, Clint came to the funeral, and we saw each other at the funeral, and we kept our relations, our personal and also business relationship or artistic relationship, let's say, and we kept going. I did the sequels like Magnum Force,
Right.
the Deadpool. I did, and before that I've done other movies with Don Siegel.
And it's amazing work. Did you have a sense when you?
It had an impact.
Yeah. Did you start to get a sense that Clint was going to start experimenting with music in his future?
I never experiment. I do whatever I think has to be done.
Yeah. Did you ever speak to Clint about Clint doing film music in his future?
No, but I know he's doing it.
Yeah. So tell me, when you started to have success in Hollywood, how would you go about selecting which films you wanted to do? Because you did so many interesting ones.
Well, that's a very difficult question. It's a good question, but difficult to answer. Because I have to tell you that once I started to live in this country, It happens in this country, but it happens all over the world. How you make a living day by day, you have to have food for your family, you have to buy things, you have to pay rent or whatever. So you need the money. You need to make some financial, to have some financial security. So I didn't have too much choice. Of course, there are some films that some projects I didn't like at all, and I didn't do them. But sometimes I did, because as I said, I needed the financial base to work, to live, my family and myself. So it's not as easy as you think.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really respect about you is, and this is not true, I think, of a lot of film composers, is that even on certain films where the movies themselves were not well received by the critics, your scores always were still good and interesting. Like, it always seemed like your scores were even like a notch higher than some of the other movies. I mean, you definitely did some great movies too, but your scores always stood out. It didn't seem to matter whether the film was good or not.
Well, this is a difficult, again, question. You are very good at posing questions because that means that you have a great sensitivity and also curiosity. First of all, let me tell you that maybe I've been blessed, and this is something you can. I'm not a fanatic religious person. I think that there is some kind of divinity, maybe. I cannot even prove it. But maybe it's yes, because when you hear the music of the great masters, Johann Sebastian Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and also the great masters of our time, of my time, Ravel, Debussy, Stravinsky, Bela Bartok, and also the jazz and George Gershwin and Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, Louis Armstrong. All these people, they have to have something more than talent. To me, they are geniuses. And how do you explain a genius? It has to have some kind of some inspiration that is so rare. And I've been influenced by all them. And I also couldn't conceive even to write a little tune. I couldn't conceive to do something too terrestrial, too basic. I came with some good melodies that help. To have melodic idea is very helpful. And I couldn't write music that wouldn't be in that kind of vein.
That's really interesting. When you look back at the many, many film scores and TV scores that you've written over your whole long career, what is it that you're most proud of in terms of your work?
See, this question now, I don't blame you. But this time, I don't find this question as acute as the other ones you made. Because Yes, okay. I did the job, and it works. But I'm not proud of anything. I'm I have a satisfaction what I've done, but I'm not proud of anything.
Well, I would disagree. I feel like you should be proud, but that's your, that's what you think. What is the, I know we have to wrap this up pretty soon, but what is the thing that you like best about being a film composer, and what's the toughest thing about being a film composer for you?
I don't understand the question. Can you speak a little bit slower and louder, please?
Sure. What is the thing that you like best about being a film composer, and what is the thing that you like the least about being a film composer?
Well, I like everything. First of all, I'm not only a film composer. That means there's no such a thing as film composers. They're just composers, period. Like when Verdi, Bizet, Puccini, they were writing operas, they were not opera composers. They were composers, period. So I am a composer. I write jazz, classical, films, television. It's the same thing. You divide the activities according to what's going on. But still, you're a composer, period. Composer comes from Latin, componere, put things together. So componere, composing. I put things together. It doesn't matter if it is for film or for anything. There's some composers who write for commercials, and some of them are very good, but they are forced to do so because of financial reasons. And I don't look down on them, because they are composers, they are colleagues, everybody, if they are good. If they are good, I have respect for them. If not, I ignore them, and I understand that maybe they don't have that talent. They are not touched by the possibility of having talent. But I don't look down on them. They're still colleagues.
Well, it sounds like you believe that, composing is an important art form, and it doesn't matter what kind of music you're doing.
Exactly.
Is there, just in general, in life, something that, like, what is the role of an artist, in your opinion? If you're a composer, if you're an artist, what is one's purpose?
Well, I think that you are very generous in having this incredible opinion on me. And it is very, very nice, and you're a very great guy. And in 2 minutes, we became almost friends. And it's like if I've known you all my life. But I don't know what else to tell you.
Well,
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
No, you're not disappointing me. I appreciate your honesty in your answer. You are a great artist. As you talked about your work in film and television and opera and jazz, you've done it all, and you've done amazing things in all those different areas. I've been concentrating on film because this is a film music show, but you're obviously someone who has dedicated your life to music and your passion, and you give it your all, and your body of work shows it. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and congratulate you on all your years of success. Is there still more that you want to do moving forward? that you haven't mentioned?
No, everything's okay. I'm okay.
You're good? Okay. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. And
thank you for this wonderful interview, and you forced me to think. And I'm sorry, as I said, that I disappoint you because my answers were not maybe what you expected. But you forced me to think, which is not, it doesn't happen too often that people force me to think.
well, I wasn't disappointed.
In that case,
Yeah.
I should have done an interview to you.
Well, anytime you'd like. We're going to be playing your music for a couple hours on the program tonight. So if our listeners didn't hear everything in his words, I invite you to tune in tonight and listen to the music of Lalo Schifrin. Good night, and thank you again, and hopefully we can speak again in the future.
Okay, me too.
Okay, take it easy.
The best to you, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thanks. Bye-bye.